let's talk a little bit about your experiences as an engineer and, what were some of the highlights, during your experiences and, all those different years. What were some highlights, during those experiences?
Carrying out projects, $1 million, even $1 billion projects, in from the design to the construction to the production of oil and gas, you name it, and being all this time very, very motivated by the engineers I work with. Engineers are the best, man. I mean, let's be real blunt about it. These are the people that you cannot fool around with. You got to know your stuff. Then there was also a time when I decided, let me just go and teach in the university for a while. The oil price had dropped drastically, and they were laying off people. And I had you guys. I think you were like a year old, and I decided I'm going to go and teach in the university. I will be immune to any kind of layoffs there. So that was a big achievement for me to be a university professor. In between, of course, I had done my master's and PhD here in the US. And that was the next step to teach and do some research in the
Yeah.
university, do some publishing.
Hmm.
So those were big achievements. I can't really point, I don't know if you wanted me to pinpoint one, but there have been so many of them. I
Yeah, just
remember,
yeah, it
pick
just
one.
sounds like you had such a wealth of different experiences from teaching to professional to being in the oil industry and having that professional experience. So it just seems like the experiences and the successes have been pretty vast.
Yes, I'm being able to travel the world with my wife. So indeed, what I promised her on the day we met, I think I pretty much honored it. And you guys, as you've grown older, you've traveled with me. You've been, for example, we were in the Middle East for 6 years. I believe five in your own case, since I spent a year alone before your mom brought you guys over to join me. Um, I really feel that that was a big decision. And the projects that I worked on, one big one was called the Mukhaizna oil field. 3 billion barrels of oil in place. And we didn't know how to get it out. And then I joined as the what they call the focal point, meaning I was responsible for pretty much coordinating all the technological advances that we would then apply to try to recover the oil. The reason we couldn't recover it easily was because it was heavy oil, very thick, like tar, down there. We knew where it was. We knew that it needed special technology, and I was heavily involved in designing and building the structures that produced most of that oil. I'm very proud of that.
That's great. Yeah, appreciate you sharing that story as well. And in a related question, particularly in the oil industry, what were some challenges, that you had to navigate? And, how were you able to overcome some of those challenges? Maybe if it was a specific project or an experience that you had in the oil industry.
Yeah. Well, it was tough occasionally traveling alone initially before you guys were able to join me with your mom. But I quickly realized nobody cares whether I am missing my family or this and that. No, I just focused, got the job done, worked super hard, and occasionally will call my wife, your mom, and she would help me talk to you guys on the phone. So that was a morale boosting thing. But the loneliness was real, especially in some of the more remote places. Don't forget, you drill for oil and gas anywhere there's oil and gas. So I've drilled in deep ocean. I've drilled in the deserts of Oman and Saudi Arabia. I've drilled in very cold Canada. I'm talking about cold enough that if you drink water, and you blow it out of your mouth, it might freeze before it gets to the ground. I mean, that's how cold it was. And I would wear double, triple clothes, and at one point, even thought about borrowing your mom's party hose. We wouldn't talk. We wouldn't talk about that.
All
Let's
right.
just. It was
That's a
cold.
yeah, no, that sounds pretty cold.
Yeah,
Um, so we talked about, some challenges and how you're able to overcome that. What tips do you have for young engineers getting into the field?
that's an excellent question. I have been in a lot of leadership positions with younger engineers. I've actually been involved not only in teaching them in the university, I've been involved in tutoring them on the job, making sure that they understand that this is no longer school. This is real. You are involved in million, even billion-dollar projects in the Gulf of Mexico, for example, in the Arctic, in the hot deserts of Oman and Saudi Arabia, and you just have to buckle down and get it done. Nobody cares whether you are too hot or too cold or freezing. No, you're an engineer. You are well trained. And I must confess, we also worked with a lot of good geologists. And I also mentored some geologists, some of whom took my training courses, both in the university and in adult training courses I taught in industry.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you sharing that as well. And, one question I was just thinking about also is, your approach when it comes to projects. And I'm sure each project is going to be very different. Um, you know, Going to a different project in a different area is probably going to be a little different as well. But, generally, what was your approach when it came to tackling projects and approaching that?
Well, first of all, you got to go back to the fundamentals.
Yeah,
You do, you do not cut corners in engineering. It's a waste of time. And you saw what happened in the Gulf Coast. I don't know, a decade ago when the BP well exploded, and kind of just created the environmental havoc that we are still recovering from. You go back to the fundamentals. What is the project about? What are the principles? The basic principles, the science principles don't change. You just apply them in terms of, okay, this one is particularly um, difficult, therefore it will need a bit more than the normal run-of-the-mill um, designs. I may actually need to build a prototype and test it in the lab, and we did that a lot. Or you might say, wait a minute. So I am tasked with this huge project. Obviously, I can't do it alone. Then you find the most capable people from all disciplines: geophysics, geology, even the basic sciences, physics, and you get them all together and you say, here's what we got. It's a massive project. By the way, Charles, you are never in the wrong if you can tell the boss, your boss, that you need more help. Never assume that he or she is going to say, yeah, you have always needed all this help. No. They'll try and provide you the help you need, but you got to justify it, because every help you bring in costs the company money. And by the way, you are not just designing engineering projects, you are designing within economic boundaries. So you don't have the resources, financial resources of the whole world unlimited. You are designing within a budget, and you're going to build within that budget. You have to be absolutely sure that you cannot do it within the confines of the budget. for you to go back and say, we need more money, we need more resources, we need more help. Make sure that you are really sure, because each of the requests that you make there are going to add to the cost of the project.
Yeah. So two things that really stuck out to me about what you just said there was, you being able to talk to people if you have questions too, during a process. And I think that's actually insight that I haven't really heard that much in engineering, because you kind of have, at least for me, you have this assumption that, that engineer is an expert in that particular topic or that expertise. But I think hearing the fact that, hey, if you have questions or if you need support in that process, you need to be able to collaborate, you need to be able to ask questions to move
Yeah,
along in a process. But another thing that you talked about was also being strategic in a sense of within an economic standpoint too, right? There's a
yeah.
budget.
Oh
So
yes.
when you're reaching out to people, you're asking for help, you also have to have the consideration of, well, but we also, this is going to bring in resources, this is going to bring in, this is going to result in, okay, we have to have this expenditure to bring in this resource. So you have to be comprehensive enough to think about it strategically and really have that effective approach as well. So I think that's pretty interesting information to know, particularly when it comes to a process within a project and how to approach that. So I appreciate you sharing that as well.
Yeah, that's very, very important, because you are in the business of making money
Right.
for your company. You're not a charitable organization.
Yeah.
So the company has a budget. They are going to develop, say, an oil or gas field. It's in a remote part of the world, but there's a lot of oil there from geophysics and all the satellite imagery and studies that have been done by others outside of engineering. Then you look at it. The first meeting is called, first planning meeting. You would have maybe done some background reading on the project. You should have, actually, to go into this meeting prepared, because they will expect you to contribute your own ideas. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, but I also have a master's and a PhD in petroleum engineering. The two are related in the fact that they are all science and technical based, but they are very different in that, in one sense, you are dealing with machines, like in mechanical engineering, pumps and compressors and so on. In petroleum engineering, if you use any of those machines, you are using them to produce oil and gas for the universe. I mean, that's it. Economically, it's going to be economic. Or you may as well not do it, because your company will go broke. And guess who gets to be fired first? You, the person that didn't make money for them.
Yeah.
It's, it's, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you providing that information as well. And anything else? I think we're getting towards the end of the interview now, but do you have anything else that you'd like to share or about your experiences?
Yeah, I would really like to just say that the Lord blessed me with a very good family. My original family of my mom, my dad, and six siblings, seven of us, five boys and two girls. But by the way, I've lost all my brothers, unfortunately, but they lived and they accomplished a lot. And then, of course, in my family, consisting of me, your mom, your older sister, your older brother, you, and then your younger sister. I hope I have done my best to lead as a father to all of you by example, and to encourage you to achieve academically. So I'm very proud of what you guys have accomplished. I, in terms of is there anything really that I would have wished any of you didn't? No, the Lord blessed you with specific skills. You, excuse me, you in communications and writing as a journalist and as a communicator. Very impressive the way you've asked me and articulated these questions to me very logically, and I appreciate that. Your brother has done very well in engineering. He's a PhD, by the way, himself, as you know. Your older sister has an MBA, a director in one of the airlines, and your sister is a lawyer. I mean, let's face it, my wife and I had to have done something right, and your mom is a scientist. We all seem to have really done something right, raising all of you to achieve on your own. And for that, number one, I thank God. Without that, there's nothing.